G'day guys, my name is Blair. I'm a large animal vet that works for Franklin Vets in the Papakura branch. Today I'm going to be doing a brief video about ryegrass staggers, things you need to know, things to look out for, particularly this time of year obviously. Summer, autumn is when we see it mostly prevalent. So the first thing to know, obviously, it's a nervous disease of grazing animals, so that's any animal that's grazing ryegrass that can be affected by the fungus. So it's not actually the grass itself, it's from a neurotoxin produced by a fungus that lives in the grass. So they have a bit of a symbiotic relationship. The grass houses the fungus, and the fungus produces this toxin that attacks a particular bug that likes to eat the grass. So the main clinical signs we'll see is that it affects movement. It's not fatal by itself. That is, when animals are affected, they don't tend to get other organ diseases, I suppose. So no respiratory paralysis, no paralysis of any other main systems. It's just the muscular systems that are affected. So in that sense, it's not fatal by itself unless they get into misadventure, so they fall into a stream or somehow get themselves tangled up. So the big signs, pretty generic: neurological disease, head tremors, shaking, muscle twitching, stiffness, incoordinated movement, collapse. So oftentimes their muscles will really bind up, mainly when you start chasing them or you move them around the paddock. You'll notice they're pretty normal until you actually actively start trying to engage them in movement, and that's when they seize up and have these issues. So here's a video I just wanted to show you. This guy having pretty bad fasciculations of his muscles. You can see both his back and front legs seizing up, jittery. Don't know if you can see that quite well. He looks like he's sort of walking through golden syrup, quite stiff in his movement, unable to get away. This is pretty classic for grass staggers. You can see he still can move, so he's not severely affected. Often when they're super severely affected, they can't actually get away from you at all. So we sort of touched on this a little bit earlier. Why is there a toxin in ryegrass? You might wonder. It sounds bad. Again, it's the symbiotic relationship. So the grass wants to have the fungus living in there. The fungus wants to live in there to have a place to live. So the fungus produces this toxin that kills the Argentine stem weevil. So this weevil wants to eat the grass. The grass obviously doesn't want that. So that's good in a sense. Obviously there's a symbiotic relationship protecting both the grass and the fungus. It's only inadvertently bad when it's eaten by our grazing species. So just a very, very generic, basic summary of what I sort of said there: grass plus fungus and toxin. Good when it's killing the weevil, bad when our stock are eating it. So you can't say that it's a bad thing per se in general. It's actually very good for both the plant and the fungus. It's just doesn't really suit our grazing systems that we have, Last little point on the slide here is that similar to facial eczema, this time of year, January, February, March, where it's nice and warm, nice and wet, that's when we see these funguses thrive, or fungi thriving, wanting to have heaps of spores. So both issues very common this time of year. Diagnosis, pretty basic. Unfortunately, it's mainly on clinical signs. You can get grass samples, so you can take samples from your paddocks and submit those to the lab and give them to your vet to go to the lab. But the main thing we diagnose it on is the clinical signs. Obviously, no other significant organ systems involved, just the musculoskeletal system. So I'd always advise, if you're concerned, get in touch with your vet, get us out to have a look. Treatment, again, a bit lackluster. It's mainly supportive therapy. So the big thing you want to do is remove them from the affected pasture. Provide them supplementary feeds. So obviously they need something to eat still. So you can put them in other paddocks, so they can still eat ryegrass, just in other paddocks that haven't got the fungus growing in them. Other things you can feed them, obviously hay, grain. You don't want to overdo it on the grain, so mainly hay, maize, other things that you can get from your local sort of farm source place. The big thing you want to do is keep them out of danger. So the next video I'll show you is a good demonstration as to why that's important. So when they're really severely affected, obviously if they're in paddocks with streams, electric fences, things that they can get themselves tangled up in, they can cause themselves real damage. Mainly it's, as the last point says, it's a bit of a waited out sort of situation. So there's no great treatment we can give them. We just want to keep them safe while they're not themselves. This guy, really good example, shaking away, falling down, can't get away. Just up next, if you watch this, you can see obviously if that fence was electrified, this guy would not be having a great time. So the main thing we want to do is just keep animals that are affected safe. You don't want to get tangled up in that fence, and again, you don't want to have them near bodies of water that they can fall into and can't get out of, so effectively they'll drown. So last points, simple and sweet. It's always advisable to call your vet, even just for advice. Other neuro diseases can present very similarly, so things like B1 deficiency or lead toxicity, etc., other neurological disease, quite similar symptoms. Obviously, these other diseases can be more severe, so I'd always say if you're seeing neurological signs in your stock, get in touch with your vet and have a bit of a chat. If not, get us out to come and have a look. Awesome. Cheers.